Hey there, my name is Megan Clanahan. I am the co-owner of Houston Moms. And as many of you know, May is Mental Health Awareness Week. And we're doing something a little different this month. It's a very important month for us as mothers and caretakers and people who work outside the home, that we are talking about our mental health. And in partnership with our friends at UTMB Health, we are bringing you a panel this month. We thought that it would be nice for you to see some faces behind Houston Moms team, besides just my own, as well as two busy moms and researchers and doctors themselves who have made time out of their schedule to chat with us about their mental health as mothers as well. There's so much that we can chat about as it relates to mental health. And today we are specifically focusing on stress in motherhood. What does that mean? What is perceived stress? Where are we on the stress level, and how are we best coping and dealing with those in healthy ways, so that we don't fall into the unhealthy ways, so that we can be there for our family, most importantly. So I'm going to introduce you to each of our panel members. I'm so grateful that they joined us today. And in no particular order, I'm going to go to Marissa. Hey, Marissa.
Hi, I'm Marissa Cockrell. I have three boys. My oldest is 19 and he's a freshman at Baylor, about to be home with us again for the summer. My middle is 17 and my youngest is 12, so I have a little bit of a range there, but all boys. I am a professional counselor as well as a mom, and so I kind of navigate both of those worlds. And I have been with Houston Moms not very long. This is my first month. I'm very excited to be here. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. She just joined Houston Moms, and we threw her into a video. So here we are. And I'm going to go down to our next Houston Moms contributor, Tiffany.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Tiffany Harris. I am a mom of twin 6-year-olds, almost 7, just finishing their first year of school full-time at first grade. I'm a professional out inside the house. I work remotely, but I am a full-time professional. And so I've had a wide range of experiences of momming and working and just really trying to just deal with life and wifing and all the things that it takes to be running the house and taking care of the kids. And I'm in my second year as a Houston Moms blog contributor. So happy to be here.
Oh, thank you so much, Tiffany. We bonded over our twins. So a few more years to go and you'll catch up to me. You'll survive. Vicki, over to you, another one of my Houston Moms contributors.
Hi, I'm Vicki Yip, and I have 3 kids. Mine are 13, 11, and 8. Boy, girl, boy. So I have a variety of ages and genders, and I am a full-time working mom. I went back to work not too long ago, and I was a full-time mom at home for a long time, and now I'm a working mom, but I do have a hybrid schedule, so it's a little bit of a nice ease back into full-time work for me. And I've been with Houston Moms, and I think this is my 6th year. So yes, I've been here a while.
Our veteran. And she also worked for us before she went back to full-timing. And we miss her desperately, but we're excited to see what all she's doing. So thank you for joining us, Vicki. So now we have our 2 UTMB professionals over with us. Let's start with you, Dr. Robinson.
Hi, I'm Dr. Kimberlyn Robinson. I'm an OBGYN at UTMB. I work full-time. I have 4 children. My oldest is 11, who's a boy. That's Joseph. My daughter is 8, Kirsten, and then twin boys that are 3. So my life is quite jam-packed, along with being also a wife and juggling all the roles of that. Can be quite difficult, and the stress level can get high, but grateful for all the roles.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. And we had chatted a while back, and so it's great to see you again. And thank you for joining in this important conversation. And then Dr. Wood, and back to you.
Yeah, hi, I'm Leela Wood. I am a professor and the director of evaluation at the Center for Violence Prevention at UTMB. I'm a social worker, and my areas of expertise are intimate partner violence and sexual assault. I am the mom to two boys, 14 and 11, and it's never a dull moment over at our house, I'll say that. So I'm happy to be here today.
Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule. I know you have a very stressful position and a very important one at UTMB, and that we'll also be touching on hopefully during Mental Health Awareness Week. So, and for those of you who have watched our videos before, you know that they're typically kind of short and a little more condensed. We obviously have a panel here. We want to hear from as many of our distinguished mamas as we can. And so it may be a little bit longer. If you are putting babies to bed or doing lunch or something, I encourage you to stop and then come back to this video so you can hear from everyone. We're also going to try to get it up on our podcast so you have an audio version as well. And so you can hear all of the input from our moms, but we're really just going to have a conversation today. So that you don't feel maybe so alone in your parenting journey. So I'm just going to throw it out, and we are going to start with, let's rank our stress level 1 to 10, our daily perceived stress level. How are you feeling today? We're just going to go straight down the board. Marissa, what would you say your stress level is today?
Today, I would say probably a 4. If you are saying daily, I mean, typically I would average around a 4.
Okay. Dr. Robinson?
Well, today is my administrative day, so I would say I'm about a 4, probably. Given that my job is often a high stress job, plus trying to manage home from work, I would probably say I live around a 7 or 8. Sometimes a 10, depending on the day. So yeah, quite stressful, but I figure out how to get it done.
Don't moms do that? Vicky, what about you?
I think today I'm like between a 4 and a 5, which is, I mean, it varies usually, but there are some things that I'm looking ahead, like I need to do, so that adds stress when you're looking ahead. So I'd say I'm about a 4 or 5 today.
Okay, Dr. Wood?
I'm also at a 4 today. I have a nice weekend ahead of cooking my sister's birthday dinner and a lot of youth basketball tournaments. So now that might make my stress go to like a 7 or 8, but other than that, it's the end of the week and I'm feeling a lot less stressed out.
Good. And Tiffany?
Hi, today I'm probably at a 5. It's Friday and I had 2 meetings get canceled, so that's always pretty good. And but I'm about to hit 610 traffic to pick up my kids after this, so that's gonna make me stressful for sure.
Which is the perfect segue for my next question, which is, what are the stressors that you're experiencing on a daily basis? So what does that look like for you in your daily life? So Tiffany, you mentioned traffic. What else are your stressors that kind of lend to your level?
Yeah. So I don't want to put it off on the kids, because it's not necessarily the kids, but it is the new normal now of getting them to school and picking them up. So my husband and I have had to really navigate, like, what's the best way to identify the schedule for the week. We have something I think that works, for the most part. But getting in the midst of that traffic and trying to have to like get home and back before a meeting can be pretty stressful. And then work just on top of that. It's just, I have a full-time schedule, and it can be very stressful in that sense as well, of just managing work. I have a small team, so it can be quite stressful, and just dealing with the work and getting everything done and living up to those expectations, really.
I think that sounds very relatable. Marissa, what do you think? Same?
Well, I was thinking, my biggest stressor, I think, is just with teenagers, like their problems are big problems, and they have really hard things that they go through. I think just navigating their struggles, their griefs, their disappointments with them is probably when my stress rises really high. My other one that I thought of was just decisions that have no clear answer. Like, when you're having to navigate what to do next, like for my counseling practice or for other things, it's like weighing options, and then really you just, you're having to kind of make a decision without a clear answer. Those are probably what make my stress level go the highest.
Co-sign on the preteen teen stress, like less physically tired, more emotionally tired, right? Vicky's kind of in the same boat with some preteen, teen angst, but also little ones too. Vicky, what are your kind of like regular stressors on a daily basis?
I think at a certain age, the kids have their own schedules. And as mine get older, they have a lot of stuff going on. So it's not just my schedule or my spouse's, it's their schedule. And so the stressors are like trying to not just get everyone to every place, but the idea of, did I forget something? Am I going to make this thing of yours? Who's going to make it if I can't make it and dad can't make it? Like, do you need me there? Are you just saying you don't? Like those things where you're then questioning like your role as a mom. And now that I'm working again, there's a little bit of juggling with that. But my job really isn't a big stressor for me. I'm really enjoying my work, but it's what comes with that, because the time is now limited, and how much I like my work that I actually want to stay. I mean, I know it doesn't sound great, but like I want to stay sometimes later because I want to do something fun that I'm still working on, but I'm thinking, no, I better get home because I haven't seen them all day. And so there's a little stressor with like, as I'm growing as a person and they're growing as kids, and our marriage is, changing, like all the things that collide with that.
So relatable. I see Dr. Robinson shaking her head up there. Like, I get it. Dr. Robinson, does that sound familiar? What kind of stressors do you experience?
Like they all kind of said, the daily stresses of work, are trying to make sure everybody at work is taken care of. I guess just juggling all the roles. So I'm answering, my chart messages, I'm getting phone calls, I'm seeing patients in clinic, or maybe in the hospital and I'm operating. Like that alone has its own amount of stress. And then in the background is still making sure the kids are taken care of. And then I'll speak and I don't, no one else, I don't know if anyone else on the panel is dealing with the same thing, but my twins both have autism. So navigating that world, I'm sure there's moms out there, and I'm speaking from an autism mom times two. So that is also stressful, making sure that they're getting the therapy that they need for that, and navigating the school system for them, and then still trying to balance the emotional well-being of my older two kids and making sure that they are feeling seen and their needs are met, and juggling their schedules. So that is difficult. And so because the twins have autism, we, before we even knew they had autism, because we had twin boys that are 3, we have a nanny now. So that's a whole nother role to juggle, which I love her. She's like one of my best friends now, but bringing someone else into the home is difficult initially. Now I can't live without her. I sometimes joke with my husband, tell him I potentially could live without him and not her. I'm joking. But I mean, she has definitely been a staple of helping me find balance. But juggling that role was definitely difficult, especially as someone that didn't grow up in the role of having a nanny in the home. I grew up with grandparents or aunts, or, those kind of things. So that is could be stressor, different personalities. And then also trying to balance the wife role for my husband and trying to carve out time for him. So there's, many different stressors. I think some days I do better with one and not the other. And then other days I feel like I do better with the other and not that. So I think that's a normal mom thing.
Well, I kind of love that imagery too, because I think a lot of us moms think of like if we have a report card, like we nailed it in the husband-wife category today, but we may have failed on something else because we were so good over here.
Yes.
Yes, I feel that. Dr. Wood, what about your stressors?
Well, I really resonated with what Vicky was saying. I love my work and I can get really caught up in it. And because it's an area I'm really passionate about, which is working for survivors of intimate partner violence. I think one of my main sources of stress is just focusing my attention on my job and my children and my family. I have a really large extended family. I have many siblings, so that's something that's really important to me to focus on a lot. And what helps me with all of that is that my husband is incredible with our kids, and he is an egalitarian partner who really helps me live my career dreams. And that's allowed me to like focus on that passion, but also be able to focus on the kids when we want to do stuff together. So, and right now I have a teenager who doesn't want to spend a ton of time with me anymore. So, you know, he'll get back to it. But I think just balancing the work that is so exciting with the needs of the kids is something I like to focus on.
Yeah, those teenagers, man, it's just like they woke up and they were 12 one day and then we just didn't see them again for a year. Or at least mine are almost 13. So I just don't see it. They're just upstairs and I assume they're there and they come down for meals. So I know they're alive, which is cool. So thank y'all for all of those insights of what your stressors are like. And obviously what we have to do as moms to be healthy and centered as much as possible and not fall victim to kind of this mom martyrdom that I think sometimes we can fall victim to. How are you guys dealing with the stress? I know, Dr. Robinson, you mentioned that it was hard to ask for outside help. So can you kind of speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, I don't know why us as moms feel like, I don't know, sometimes to feel like we're a good mom that we don't need help. It feels like, it seems like we are being, and I hate to say the word weak, but you know, that we are not holding it all together if we have to ask for help. I think that especially when the twins were little, I feel like I never got any sleep. But I think that I kind of turned everyone away because, and I don't know if it's a sense of embarrassment or a sense of like you can't do it, or feeling the need to like be superwoman, and asking for help. I think the other thing about asking for help though is you feel like you don't want to be a burden or a bother to other people. I think that was another thing for me, is like they have their own stuff going on. I know this is my stuff. I don't want anyone else to feel like I am bothering them or, taking time away. But I mean, the biggest thing you can do is ask for help. If they say no, that's okay. But unless you ask, you won't know. So that's the only thing that I would say is just ask.
How did it feel that first time when you just like kind of almost admit it to yourself? Like, I need help. Like, how did that feel to you?
I guess initially it was suffocating as someone who didn't feel like, I could needed help. I mean, I'm a quite independent person. I mean, my husband has always been there to be a helping hand. And he helps a great deal, but then finally realizing like, okay, yeah, this is above what we can do on a daily basis. It's a little bit sobering, but then once you kind of release yourself and say, you know what, it's okay. Like, we're human. We're not superhuman. Once you release yourself and say, give me all the help I can get to help me get through this, because it truly is a village to take care of not only ourselves, but I think it takes a village to take care of moms too, or, like you have to have other resources to help your mental health and your children's mental health. So if you're trying to do it all alone, you can't be a good mom per se, because you are overstimulated is my new favorite term.
Overstimulated, all the sensories activated. Yes, absolutely. I think it's such a brave step to take. Marissa, I'm sure you can kind of speak to that, working with moms and kind of, what do you see are positive ways to kind of help deal with these stressors and talk about kind of like mommy martyrdom and how that can affect our mental health?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a newer concept, right? It's a very kind of American ideal, like that we're supposed to do it alone. And I think that if we look back through history, I mean, they lived in community, they did life in a community. And so I think just the fact that we even feel that we are weaker if we can't do it alone it's sad because, years ago, they didn't even think that they could do it alone. Right. And so, yeah, I think that that's mom guilt is something we all talk about and deal with all the time, right? There's guilt of doing too much, there's guilt of not doing enough. So I mean, it's just yeah, I think, for me, it's knowing what I value as a person and living out those values, right? So like one thing I tell my clients a lot, like I value peace and connection. Like that's what I value. And so my own personal peace and connection with people. And so if I'm stressed and I'm at the end of my rope and I'm not going to do the dishes, I'm going to sit on the couch and read a book. Like that's what I value. I value feeling peaceful in my inside. If I need to sleep, I'm going to sleep, like, because it's a value I have. And then if my kids are downstairs and they're wanting to connect, like I drop everything I'm doing, I connect. Like that's a huge value for me, right? And so when you know kind of who you are and what you value, I think it's easier to know what you can say no to, so that you can say yes to the things that actually matter to you. That's been really helpful to me. I feel zero guilt if my house is a mess, if I'm doing the things that I value, right? Like who really gives a crap? Like if you're, like if your house is a mess, if you're connecting with your people, and you feel full in your tank and you can keep going. And so that's helpful to me, at least.
I could not love that more. Like just thinking that kind of colors your whole perspective, right? The things that you value becomes your totem pole of how you say yes or no to things. And I think that's incredibly important and insightful. I would encourage anyone who just heard that, write down like what's important to you, and then let that guide your motives and what you do. Dr. Wood, obviously you have a stressful job. You have a lot of emotional stress. I know that comes with your job too. There's a lot of intake coming into you for what your role is. What is your best advice to dealing with stress?
Yeah, I mean, I do a lot of work interviewing and learning more about intimate partner violence survivors and their experiences. And it can be stressful, but I actually get a lot of strength and resilience from that because survivors are amazing and they overcome incredible adversity and they're moving mountains with very little resources. So I actually get a lot of compassion satisfaction from my job. I think my biggest source of stress, and this relates to mental health, is that there aren't enough resources for people that need them. So I do get stressed out about the lack of counseling for people who are experiencing poverty, or the mental health needs of teenagers who experience teen dating violence. So my biggest sources of stress are just kind of around the lack of resources. And what I do when I feel that way is I work with the community organizations like Houston Area Women's Center or Bay Area Turning Point. I work with them to ask them, how can we use research to help you advocate for what you need? How can I help you get what you need as an organization to help folks? And I find that advocacy fills my cup in a way that nothing else can. And then I know my kids, my boys, are seeing their mom advocate for others who are experiencing crisis and vulnerability. And they're listening and they're watching and they're seeing their dad support their mom doing that work. So it kind of helps me to feel less stressed to know that there's a place I can advocate for those resources and I can help those agencies out. So that's what I do. That's what, works for me.
What a great point. The giving back aspect, the advocacy point. Whenever we put out our holiday guide, we know it's a stressful time for many parents, and we always try to include a giving back because sometimes you just need that own internal cup filling to then be able to pour out more. And so I love that. And I love that you recognize that in yourself. I think that's so important. Vicky, you know, your life has changed a little bit in the past year. And so how are you dealing with the different stressors, and especially as the kiddos continue to grow?
Yeah, I think there are a few things that come to mind. Like, first, I think letting go of perfectionism, just the fact that you can't do it all. You could do a lot of things, but that you have to choose, like Marissa was talking about, what's important to you kind of thing. So it's really defining those things for yourself, like perfectionism, letting go of what even like people think about you. Like, it's okay if they're like, oh, she's never there. Like, who cares? Like if I'm not going to put the pressure on myself to have to do things that I are lower on my total pole of priorities because I'm afraid of what somebody might think. And I've let go of that. Like, I'm not at that meeting. Like, I'm not going to show up at certain things because I'm picking and choosing. And we have 3 kids and a busy lives and extended family as well. So there's that. And to deal with like stress, I think there's, for me, like the idea of being nice to yourself. Like, I know it sounds silly, but sometimes we tell our friends to do nice things for themselves. And we're like, you should do this. You should do this. Why don't you do this? Like, you'll feel better. And well, we should listen to ourselves. We should take our own advice. Like, Megan, you're really big into those nice bougie baths that you take with all your books and your candles. And like, I learned that from Megan, and I like started taking baths, which like, who has, you have little kids, you don't like go sit in a tub if you have little kids, but like, I don't anymore. And I forgot, like, I could do that. And so doing like the little things that like relax you, it's a treat for yourself, be nice to yourself. Sometimes it's a stressful day, and like do things to be nice to yourself. And I think the other thing for me is just seeing myself as a growing person. We're all like works in progress. Nobody made it yet. We're not like this perfect person. And like going with that, like, oh, these hard things in my life, like they're good for me somehow. I don't necessarily see it now, but like, they're good for me somehow. I'm going to lean into that a little bit and know that I'm growing as a person, and kind of accepting that in my head helps me to deal with the stresses a little bit better.
That long-term perspective, I guess, that we're just taking our steps now. And yes, I have to say, I introduced everyone to the bath influencer bougie situation. That's how I deal with mine. It works for me, so I'm glad you're enjoying it. But yeah, it doesn't necessarily work when you have like 2-year-olds. You're afraid that might like not make like you don't have that time, but when they get older, guys, there's hope, I promise. Tiffany, how are you dealing with your stressors? I have a little bit of insider information, but how are you doing and coping with 2 very busy 6-year-olds and a full-time job?
Yeah, so I will say that one of the things when we transitioned them to full-time school last year, or this past school year, one of the first things that we did is we canceled everything. So similar to Dr. Robinson, we had a nanny for about 5.5 years, and that was a lifesaver. Like, I love that. I didn't put them in full-time school, and that was really just that was self-care for us as an entire family. But then when we transitioned them to full-time school, we canceled everything so that we could start fresh and new. So that was helpful. And then as we proceeded in this school year, I continued to just offer up guardrails for people in my time, both at work and in other areas of my life, so that similar to what other people have said, like Marissa, like I know what my value systems are, and I know what I care about. And so again, like Vicky said, I can say no to a meeting, I can say no to whatever event, but there's a lot of things I do say yes to as well. So I continue to say yes to Houston Moms blog as a writer because that's important to me. I continue to say yes to my weekly Wednesday night out at Sonoma, because that's one of my favorite things to do, and go and sit by the fireplace there and have a glass of wine. So I really just try to say yes to the things that matter to me, and I say no to the things that are lesser important to me on the totem pole. And I work with my husband in trying to do that and make sure that those things happen.
Y'all are so wise. Like I mean, truly. And I think this is everyone has given such great advice. And I'm trying to think of a little bit of a curveball, but I'm trying to think of like the mom who's listening or watching right now, who feels so alone. And I think I saw something, it was a report that just recently came out that Americans and especially American parents are feeling loneliness at the highest rates that they've ever felt before. So when we're speaking to mental health, we're thinking of those people that maybe it was exacerbated by COVID, or they just have young little young ones at home, and you feel trapped almost in your own home. So if you would, everyone kind of think back to like moments where you've had, what would be your best advice that you would give a mom who feels lonely, feels on the periphery, does not feel seen, who feels like maybe she's lost herself? Because I think there's a lot of different ways you can go with that. How can we encourage them today? I'm just going to throw it out. Dr. Robinson, anything come to mind of what you would say to that mama?
Yeah, one of the things that I found that I needed to do during the process of the twins and getting their diagnosis and things like that, I wound up, finding myself in, personal counseling. Like, don't be scared to do that. And then I found that refreshing, because it's, even though, she's my therapist, it gives you a chance to kind of offload the things. And I realized I felt better talking to someone from the outside. So I think that's something to consider. I almost feel like it's a necessity for everyone to have a therapist if you're just doing a check-in, once a month. Girlfriends are great. I have those too. But something about a therapist kind of being removed from the situation and being able to give you insight outside of your situation, I think that is important. So if you haven't looked into a therapist, I would say that would be a first step, because they can give you a perspective of, this may seem lonely now, but this won't last forever. When you have little kids, you're in the trenches. I think I'm finally coming out now that the twins are 3, of the trenches, and starting to find myself again and what Kim likes, and, making sure I do more self-care, which is really hard when the kids are small. But I would say, if you are out there and you do feel lonely, seek therapy as an option. But also try to find community. So what I realized that when my twins were getting their autism diagnosis is I felt alone. Like, I felt like I was the only person like going through this. Like, how did this happen to me? And I know that it's kind of a faux pas or cliche to talk about social media, but I think that I found community more so on TikTok than I think I would have ever done on accident, because the more you search something, the more you find it, right? So then your feed becomes all of that. And I'm like, God, there are so many moms in different stages of life going through this. It gave me a different perspective, like, why not me, right? And so now it gives me an approach to, I'm not the only one going through this. I can get through this too if they got through it as well. It's gonna be hard, it's not easy. But so I would say find a community, and then finding a therapist, and then remembering how to find yourself again, despite, like, you're more than a mom, right? So now I'm starting to get out there and do things that are not just for my kids, right? So I'm doing things that are for me, joining, groups and societies that help my kids, but also help me. So I think that's important too. So.
I love that. And for Kim, right? Not Kim the
Yes.
doctor, not Kim the wife, not
Yes.
Kim the mom, not Kim
Yeah.
the mom of twins with
Autism.
the spectrum. And
Right.
so I love that. And you brought up a perfect segue over to Marissa, who I'm sure would love to speak about the values of speaking to a counselor. And but yeah, what would you tell the mama out there that feels just like they're on an island?
Yeah, I mean, I do think, I was going to say connection, and I think that a counselor can really help with that. I do wish that we did that well with one another in community. I think that it's it's sometimes harder to find. And I think a professional is just helpful. I mean, I have my own counselor, so I believe in it. I don't just, I'm not just a counselor. I go to counseling because I believe that that the support of that is very helpful, and it's changed me and made me a better person. I think, another encouragement I would give to moms is, there was a Harvard study done on happiness, and they found that presence is the #1 contributing factor to happiness. And, practicing being in the moment that you're in, even if everything in you feels like you want to escape because you're so tired of the 2-year-olds, or like just the grind of the day, but pushing up against, that temptation to get on our phones or to be distracted or even to be in our heads sometimes, and just be present and practice being present, will increase your joy, because, I think it's just hard for us to be in the moment. And I think as much as we can practice that, you see great difference in your life. So those 2 things I would say: connection and presence.
That just took me to church, the whole presence thing. I mean, because I'm so guilty of it. Like, I will be doing stuff, all the time, and my kids will come home from school, and I'm like, one more email, it's fine. And it may not be. I mean, they kind of still need their mama. Dr. Wood, what's the one piece of advice or 2 pieces of advice you would give to a mama who's feeling a little bit down?
Well, Dr. Robinson took mine, which is if you don't have time. So I'm a huge believer in counseling. And it's been a huge benefit in my life, especially in my transition to motherhood. I guess I'm thinking a lot right now about moms that are new to having teenagers, because that's a whole other transition. You have the time to kind of explore yourself in a different way. And your role changes. So there's these developmental phases of our children, but our motherhood changes with those phases. And so I guess what I would encourage folks to do is, the internet gets a lot of bad rap, and it deserves some of it. But there are so many opportunities. If you can't afford counseling, or you're not sure if it's for you, there are so many opportunities to connect with folks online, whether it's more passively through TikTok or Instagram Reels, or there's chat mechanisms. There's even online hotlines if you're really feeling lonely, if you're really feeling depressed. So I think the internet is an incredible resource to either add to that counseling, or to kind of just get some connection, because I agree with what Marissa was saying, like, so much is about connection. The other thing I would say is, have a roster of different mom friends. Have a mom friend for when you need to go out to drink wine. Have a mom friend that'll run errands with you. Have a mom friend that you're not even that close with, but that loves your kids. Have people, just like you have pairs of shoes and outfits for different occasions. Different phases of motherhood merit different friends. When my kids were little, I pretty much needed to be around other people with young children. Now I have mom friends that have kids that they're empty nesters, or they have young children now, and I don't have young children anymore. And I really enjoy that variety. And it helps get that connection, and just know that your needs change, and it's okay to change your social group and your sources of connection as your needs change.
I hope y'all are taking notes while you're watching this video or listening to it, because I think that was so insightful. Also, I would echo, I know, social media can get a huge bad rap, but that's actually how Houston Moms was born. So shameless plug here is that we exist to be here for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So if you're up at 3 a.m. and you're changing diapers and you're wondering if your kid will ever sleep, we have an article for that, where you can go and find inspiration, find hope, find comedy, find relief in those words written by very real moms that you're seeing here today. I think there is a huge value in the online communities. Just don't read all the comment sections of everything. It's probably safe for your mental health. Like, don't go dive deep on your local news station in their comments, because you won't enjoy your trip there. Tiffany, down to you. What would you tell a mama who just feels a little bit alone?
I would say continue to explore what you like. So with twins, it was I, with twins, it is just double time all the time. And I really just had to figure out what are the different things that I liked. I remember I applied to be a writer, I think a year or two before, and I didn't get accepted, but it turned out to be a good thing that year because things were just so crazy. I've started volunteering now because I feel like I need to start doing that and returning to the things that I care about. So I think, as sort of to what Dr. Wood said, it's like, just continue to figure out who you are and evolve with that and find community in the areas and spaces that are connecting to you in that moment as a mom or as an individual, so that you then cannot feel so lonely. Because again, I think that's the kind of recurring word, is that it really is about connection, either to other people or to the things that make you feel passionate and alive and feel good.
That's a perfect way to put it, that it's not just connection to others, but it's a connection within yourself of who Tiffany is, who we all are. Vicky, over to you.
Yeah, thinking back on when the kids were little, I mean, I really can relate and feel that loneliness, like being on an island, like trapped in your house. Like I remember it, it's like slightly traumatic. Like I will always remember that feeling. And you feel like you're alone. So what I would say is that you're not alone, like you feel like I feel like I'm the only person that, I just moved here. I just XYZ, like I must be the only one who, whatever. And it's like, in reality, you're not. Like a lot of people are in the same boat. And so maybe to think of it as definitely a season. Like I would say, I promise, a season. It's a season and it will pass. And I know it because I went through it and it was horrible and it was lonely sometimes. Not that it wasn't wonderful too. Like, it's also wonderful, sure. But I mean, the physical labor of carrying children and car seats and all of that, I remember it well. So I would say it's a season. Obviously, they're not always going to be in the car seat. Like, you won't always have to lug the bag around. You won't. And the other thing, as others have mentioned, is community. So for myself, I had joined Mothers of Preschoolers. It's a group, and they had like different, in different areas of town, there's different groups that are also called MOPS, Mothers of Preschoolers. And it's like a local moms group, and there are all kinds of local moms group. And this is where the internet is wonderful. You can try to search one and find one. And the thing with that is, you can go and still feel lonely. And that's the truth. But it takes maybe on your own end commitment, like saying, well, I'm going to keep trying. Like, knowing that of course it's like that. You go somewhere new, maybe you don't know anybody, right? I'm going to keep trying. And I just go. I could not know a person, but I tell myself, someone's going to be my friend. Like, I'm a friend here. Like, you tell yourself, I'm going to do this. And you go and you go and you go. And suddenly I was there like 8 years. And like, and you make some of your closest friends there. And part of it is being committed, like telling yourself, let me give it a shot, a real shot. And part of it is also being vulnerable. Like you also have to be like, well, I'm lonely. Like I remember one of the moms in that group literally standing up and saying, I need a friend. And of course people were like, we'll be your friend. But nobody had thought of being the mom that just stood up and said, I really need a friend. And so putting yourself out there, I think, is also something else when you're in this stage, because you want to keep it together. You want to look like you got it because you see moms like that and you're like, but she's doing it. But, we all know it could look like something on the outside and not be the truth. So
such great information in putting yourself out there. That is one of the hardest things that we can do, to kind of, because I think we all wear that mom mask a lot of the time, where we want to. I'm a type 3 Enneagram, so I want to look like I have it all together. Every time I come in one of these videos, everything runs smooth and we're great, and y'all know that's not the truth. And so it's kind of the same in our mom life, that we need to kind of remove that mask, and so we can kind of do some deep dives and not feel so alone. So I think y'all, I have the best job in the world, and we could be here forever talking about more about mental health awareness, especially in our moms. We know that we're at this just kind of like crossroads of, you know, of mental health, and we're getting more and more aware of it. But now what's the next step? How do we help our fellow moms? How do we get more professional help? And as Dr. Wood alluded to, that. And so we want to continue having these conversations. I think they're super, super important. And I wish we could just like sit here all afternoon and go to Sonoma with Tiffany, or go have a cup of coffee. I wish we could do that, but I am so thankful to UTMB Health for sponsoring this mental health series that we're having. There's gonna be a lot of great articles that are going to come up on our site, both written by UTMB Health professionals, as well as our own team, talking about everything from postpartum depression to teen mental health, which that was also touched on today. So incredibly important. I hope you'll tune in this week and see all that we're writing. To my Houston Moms team, Tiffany, Vicki, Marissa, thank you so much for joining, y'all.
Sure.
Oh, I really appreciate you guys, and I know why you're here, and I know your heart for moms, and I appreciate that. To our UTMB professionals, Dr. Wood and Dr. Robinson, we heard about your very busy lives, and you were so kind to share a portion of your day with us. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wood. And you know, next month we'll be back with another health topic. But for this month, we're staying focused on mental health awareness. I encourage you to be kind to all of the moms in your surrounding community. I personally right now, for whatever reason, have it on my heart to text a mom and just tell her she's doing a good job. So maybe there's some sort of challenge we can take from today to reach out to mom and say like, hey, I see you today. And I think you're doing awesome. So to my 5 moms who joined us, I think you're doing awesome. So thank you so much for joining us. And until next time, Houston Moms team, we will see you.